It was a crisp afternoon when the Karen sisters, HOA Karen and her equally entitled sibling, decided to make their next move. This time, their target was my Bugatti, which they claimed was too loud and a violation of some imaginary standard they had conjured in their minds. Confident and self-righteous, they arrived with papers in hand, convinced that they could enforce their whims with sheer audacity. Karen stormed up the driveway, red-faced and shouting about community standards, while her sister followed closely, nodding in agreement and amplifying the theatricality of the scene. Their son, trailing behind nervously, seemed to realize that yet another public spectacle was about to unfold. Neighbors, already familiar with the sisters' antics, quietly observed from a safe distance, cameras ready to capture the inevitable chaos. My wife and I approached calmly, fully aware of the sisters' reputation for harassment and overreach. "Karen, your claims are baseless," my wife said firmly. "This is private property, and your attempt to intimidate us or enforce imaginary rules is unlawful. Any further actions will be documented and addressed legally." Karen, undeterred, began gesturing wildly toward the Bugatti, insisting that it violated unspecified regulations and that immediate action was required. Then came the pivotal moment. One of the neighbors discreetly activated a camera mounted on the driveway, capturing the sisters' entire confrontation. Karen, frustrated by the lack of immediate compliance, tried to escalate further, reaching toward the car and shouting at the top of her lungs. At that instant, the car's alarm system, installed precisely for such occasions, erupted in a cacophony of sirens, lights flashing dramatically across the driveway. The sisters froze in disbelief, their confidence evaporating instantly. Her sister began to stammer, unable to reconcile the chaos she had inadvertently created with her plans for intimidation. Karen's son, standing behind, appeared stunned, as if seeing for the first time the full consequences of his mother's reckless audacity. Attempts to argue or rationalize were drowned out by the spectacle of alarms, flashing lights, and the undeniable truth. Their entitlement had collided with reality. In a final, desperate effort, Karen tried to call the authorities to report the disturbance, claiming she had been threatened by the vehicle. By now, however, local law enforcement was well aware of her history of harassment and false claims. Officers arrived, reviewed the situation, and calmly informed the sisters that any continued attempts at intimidation would result in legal action. Their protests fell flat, leaving them flustered, humiliated, and powerless. By the end of the encounter, the Bugatti remained untouched, secure, and entirely legal, while Karen and her sister retreated, defeated and embarrassed. The neighbors whispered excitedly, sharing footage of yet another legendary HOA Karen meltdown. Her son, silently trailing behind, seemed to fully absorb the lesson. Audacity without preparation, foresight, or legal grounding inevitably ends in public humiliation. That evening, as we reviewed the footage and reflected on the spectacle, it became clear once again: preparation, calm reasoning, and strategic planning always neutralize aggression, entitlement, and theatrics. HOA Karen's audacity had collided spectacularly with reality, producing yet another public failure and reinforcing the inevitable pattern. Boldness without foresight leads only to exposure, consequence, and humiliation.